Man, turns out we're actually not that desperate, which is a good thing, for me at least, because I am totally not a cat guy, truth be told. Any cat people out here? Yeah, all right, I'm not coming to your house. I'm sorry. I'm like allergic to them too. But if you are a volunteer, so grateful that you help make this place happen. Well, hey, it is really good to be here with you. And I've talked to a lot of people who are new, maybe since Christmas or New Year's or from Super Bowl, and you're like, hey, I love this place. I love the music. I love the message. I love the people. And I love hearing from Brian and Chuck, but do we ever get to hear a live message from you, Tim? And the answer is yes. Today is one of those days. Today is your lucky day. Yes, it is. Wow. All right. I mean, Brian and Chuck are great. You know what? But you get an upgrade today, right here. Don't tell them I said that. Hey, today I want to give you a specific message that is really particular to Crossroads Mason. In fact, I'm calling this the State of the Union. Okay? I'm not talking about border walls and controversial politics. Today, I'm talking about the State of the Union here at Crossroads Mason. If you're new here, I think this is going to be a great message for you to get kind of a little window into who we are as a church. If this is the kind of place you want to sink your roots deep and build relationships. So, the State of the Union here at Crossroads, I am here to tell you, fellow Republicans and Democrats, it is strong. It truly is strong. There's amazing stuff happening here. I see you and I see the incredible things that are happening. People's lives are being changed. Marriages are being restored. Kids are being tutored. We are finding students and giving them identity. We are able to make a huge impact in our community. There is amazing things happening. The State of the Union at Crossroads Mason is strong. And I have to tell you that also there's some work for us to do. There's some things we need to shore up. In fact, I think there is a crack in the foundation that Crossroads Mason was built on 10 years ago, and Crossroads as a whole was built on 23 years ago, and it's a crack that will take us down as a church if we don't address it. And it's a crack, in fact, that will also take us down as individuals if we don't address it in our marriages, in our friendships, in our life, in our work. And so this is really, really important. This is a critical message for us. And at the end of the message today, fair warning, there is going to be an ask at the end of this message. See you guys shifting in your seat. Oh gosh, there's an ask. You can breathe easy because it has nothing to do with money. Okay, you can take a big exhale. Nothing to do with money. But guys, this is going to be good, and it's something that I am passionate about. So I want to invite God into our time. God, I thank you for this amazing community. I thank you for this church that we get to be a part of. And I pray that my words will be clear so that all of us can understand your heart for us and our church better today. I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. You know, recently I was reading the Bible, and there's something that Jesus said that totally stopped me in my tracks. Just hit me right between the eyes. John 13, verse 16. He said this. He says, now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. Man, that's like, wow, something I should pay attention to. Jesus says, if you do these things, you're going to be blessed. That's something that I want to unlock in my life. Blessing, what are blessings? They're the good things that God has for us. It's His peace, it's purpose, it's good relationships. And, you know, maybe some of you have heard this thing, the prosperity gospel, which says, if you give this money, you're going to be blessed. That's not what I'm talking about. You know, I don't listen to those prosperity gospel folks, but I listen to Jesus. And Jesus says, if you do these things, you're going to have a good life. You're going to be blessed. So what are the things that I need to do to unlock those good things, those blessings in my life? I know you guys want to know that too. Give me a drum roll. You know, drum roll here. What are the things that we need to do to unlock God's blessing, good things in our life? I'm not ready to tell you. I want to tell you a story first. I'm going to tell you here in a minute. First, a story. It was a few weeks ago. I was getting my oil changed right up the road at Valvoline, pulled the car in. I was on my phone, and I pull in and get off the call, and I tell them the oil I want, and then I pull into the garage, and I get the oil changed. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm just kind of watching the guys, and you know what? I've done this hundreds of times. You have too. And I'm just blown away at what I'm seeing, though, because these guys are talking to each other. They're courteous. There's a good kind of repertoire between them. And then this one guy, he comes to the back of my car, and he's checking the blinkers. And then I see the guy literally jog up to the front of the car and start doing this. I said, did that guy just jog while he's changing my oil? Man, look at that. And so I was so impressed. I opened the door, I pulled the manager over, and I said, John, man, I don't know if you understand what's happened here. You've created an impressive culture. And these guys have smiles on their faces. They're happy, and they've got hustle. They're jogging to change my oil. That's impressive. I was so impressed, in fact, that I snapped a picture with them. He said, you really want a picture with us? I said, yeah, I want a picture with these guys. One of these guys right here in the middle, Colin, he actually attends Crossroads Mason. He started telling me how it changed his life. It was so, so cool. It literally made my day, these guys at Valvoline. And I thought about it. Why did this interaction with these guys, why did it impact me and interrupt my day so much? It's because they provided this ridiculous service to me, and it blew me away. I want to go back to that verse that I just read earlier, John 13. He says, now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. You should know the context of this verse. What's Jesus talking about? This verse comes at the tail end of Jesus spending some time with his 12 disciples. It was a really important time that he was building with them. He had a meal together, but it wasn't just any supper. It was the last supper. He was on death row. This was on Thursday night before on Friday he was going to be executed. And so Jesus is saying and doing things. And I'll tell you, anytime I read the Bible and Jesus says something or does something, I think it's important to note. However, anytime that Jesus does something or says something on the last day of his life, when he's trying to create this culture and trying to instruct his disciples to take his message around the rest of the world, I think it's especially important to understand and listen to what Jesus says. And so at that time, they have dinner, the Passover meal, then Jesus steps up, the story says, and then he takes off his cloak, and then he gets down on his knees. He grabs a basin, he fills it with water, and he begins to wash his disciples' feet. It's incredible. This is an act that was only reserved for slaves at the time. The Son of God, the Savior of the world, down on his hands and knees washing his disciples' feet that were baked on, caked on mud and manure and dirt. It's crazy. And in so doing, Jesus, he set this example, this model, where he said, I want servanthood to be a thread that's woven throughout culture of the followers of me for the rest of eternity. And then he says this verse. He says to his disciples, verse 16, now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. That's it. Right there, that is the secret to unlocking God's blessing, unlocking the purpose that God wants to have for us, the good life. It's very, very simple. We just have to be servants. Jesus was a servant. He modeled that in that exchange and many other times. That story, that's at the tail end of Jesus' ministry. If you go all the way to the start of Jesus' ministry, 3 years before, we're going to look at another story about servants. And it's a story of Jesus' first miracle of turning water into wine. This is a story in the town of Cana. And our daughters, Hannah and Leah, they volunteer in Kids Club on Saturday nights. And this story was actually getting taught as one of the lessons in Kids Club, I guess it was a couple months ago. And I think it was Leah. She said, they were talking about, the story of water into wine. And one little kindergartner girl, she says, wine? My parents love wine. In fact, there was one time my parents drank so much wine, they threw up all over the floor. Leah was like, okay, true confessions. That is one of the fringe benefits right there of volunteering in Kids Club. It is. But in this water to wine miracle, the same principle is at play that I saw with the Valvoline guy serving me and what we're going to see here with the servants serving others. And this principle is that when we serve, we are blessed. We receive the good life. We receive good things. Let's dig into this story more because I want good things in my life. And I want good things in your life. And I believe as we dig in, also, this is the answer that can unlock how we can shore up the crack in the foundation at our church. The story goes that Jesus was at this wedding. He's with his mom, he's with his disciples, and a major party faux pas happens. They run out of wine. And so Jesus' mom kind of elbows him. She's like, Jesus, you can do anything. Do something about this. And he's like, I got this. And so here is where we pick up the story. In John chapter 2, beginning in verse 5, Jesus' mother said to the servants, do whatever he tells you. Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water," so they filled them to the brim. It's a fascinating story. And in this story, we see different principles, 3 in fact, and there's one principle here that we see first, is that servants do grunt work. Servants do whatever it takes, even if it's grunt work. Jesus' mom says the servants do what Jesus tells you to do, and they do it. Jesus says, fill up these jars, and they do it. In fact, I got some friends here who are going to do some grunt work. They're going to be bringing out right now some of these big stone planters. You know, we've got these big stone planters that we put seasonal flowers in at the north entrance and south entrance. We looked and we said, wow, those things are right about 20 to 30 gallons, just like the type of stone jars that Jesus was talking about. So let's give these guys a hand doing some grunt work, bringing out these stone jars. Thank you. So there were 6 of them, 20 to 30 gallons. Let's split the difference. Let's say 25 gallons each. And I did some quick calculations. And so, you know what? If they actually filled up all of that water and turned it into wine, that's what it's representing here, that would have been 150 gallons of water turned into 150 gallons of wine. It's crazy. Actually did some calculations, and 150 gallons of wine, you know how many bottles that equals? That equals 757 bottles of wine. I didn't think I could get all that at the wine store. So that one's representing that. So can you imagine how much work it was, though, to fill up each of these stone jars? It would have been a ton of work to fill each of these up, 150 gallons. You know what? It was hard work. It would have been dirty work. It would have been grunt work. You know, there are 2 types of work out there. There's glory work and there's grunt work. Glory work is the kind of work that I'm doing right now. It's the work that Brian, Tome, Chuck, Mingo, we often have to do on stage. Lights are on us. We got a microphone in our hand, and glory work is important. It needs to happen. But you know what? Grunt work is different. Grunt work is the type of work that no one sees except God. Or at least no one appreciates except God. But grunt work matters. It matters in our life, and it matters in the life of our church too. It's parking cars in the rain or in the snow. It's cleaning toilets. It's changing poopy diapers. It's hanging out behind a camera and working all weekend as a volunteer and then going back to work on Monday. It's tutoring whiz kids. And then at the end of your tutoring time, they act like they don't even care if you were there. You know what? It's the people who volunteer in our middle school, even though none of the kids in junior high ever wear deodorant. Am I right? Oh my gosh, if you're a middle school kid here, you know what? The axe doesn't cover it. Just put on some deodorant, okay? Man, that's not grunt work. That's gross work right there. You know, grunt work, though, I would say, is at least as important as glory work. In fact, I'd say it's even more important. You know, glory work, it's easy when the lights are coming on us to kind of absorb all that glory. But when you're doing grunt work, you have no other option but to return that glory to God. And so I got a question for you. Where are you doing grunt work in your life? Or are you avoiding it? You know, are you at the dinner table and it's time to clear it? And do you jump right in to clear the table, or do you kind of wait there for a couple pregnant seconds? You know, you got those T-Rex arms like, oh, I'll get there in just a minute. What do? Do you do that? If you're in a public restroom and you see there's this trash can right there and you see a couple crumpled up paper towels, do you walk by and you say, who didn't do their job? Or do you get down and just bend down and pick those up and throw those away? I mean, the paper towels, they don't have hepatitis on them, for crying out loud. Probably not. I'm sure they don't. A little bit about my story of serving. You know, I grew up, and I got to tell you, growing up, I was a complete and total spoiled brat. My mom did everything for me, and I loved to serve her by letting her do that. So I really did, but then it was toward the end of high school, and I started following Jesus, and I started to see he washed disciples' feet. He was a servant. I said, I want my life to look more like his, and so I began to serve even more, and I think that was a good start. I did. Where I'm recognizing, though, my outage is that I believe when I serve, I do it often, though, just to get people's attention and like, oh, attaboy, Tim, way to go. I'm doing it for the wrong reasons. You know, it's our arrangement in the Senff home for dishes is this. My wife, Mary, cooks, and I eat and clean. And guys, it's a pretty good arrangement. If you ever heard tasted Mary's cooking. And so Mary will cook, I'll eat, I'll do my job, and then I will begin doing the dishes, and I'll do all the dishes, and I'm doing them all. And then, invariably, something will happen. Mary was busy, kids are going wherever, and she goes, and sometimes she doesn't think to thank me. And so I'm thinking, I'm doing these dishes, and I'm thinking, does she know that I'm in the top 1% of husbands right now? I got the Brillo pad out and stuff. I'm trying to get some attention for this grunt work that I do. But you know what? Grunt work is work that's often never seen or appreciated by anybody. I'll tell you what, one of the reasons that I love this church is because we have leaders who, though they have to do glory work, they also do grunt work too. Like Brian Tome. I pulled in, it was a few years ago, behind him into our church parking lot. I don't know, maybe 30 seconds behind him. He'd already parked and he didn't see me. He was walking in church. So he's walking in, and I just he saw a piece of trash in the parking lot. He bent down, he picked it up, and he went in and he threw it away. And I noticed, it wasn't that he bent down, and then he kind of looked around, anybody see me? Snap a selfie like, hey, I'm serving. Go on. No, he just served. And you know what? That is what servants do. We do grunt work. We do what it takes. God is doing incredible, incredible things in the life of this church. And I got to tell you, all of it is happening on the backs of servants, regular people who are doing grunt work. See, if servants do grunt work, number one. Number two, we see from this story that servants sacrifice. Servants sacrifice. It would have been a major sacrifice for the servants to have to fill up each of these stone jars right here. Because I'll tell you, in the Middle East then and now, water is not abundant. And it wasn't like they just put a spigot in here. They had to fill these things with water. It would have been hard work. One of the reasons I think people don't do grunt work is because it requires sacrifice. Got to sacrifice our time. I'm too busy. I know we all are, but we make time for the things that are important to us. I'm too good for this. I got pride. It's not taking the fullness of who I am to do this. So what? Let's just do things that need to get done. See, sacrifice, it's a dirty word in America. Sacrifice is a dirty word even in the church. But you know what? It doesn't have to be. The definition of sacrifice is this: the act of giving something of value in exchange for something of greater value. See, we do this all the time. Sacrifice isn't dirty. Literally, we sacrifice every day. We sacrifice physically. We sacrifice eating, Cheetos and pop every day because that's something of value in exchange for something of greater value. We want to live a long, healthy life. We sacrifice financially. We give something of value, wanting to go on a sweet, epic vacation every 3 months in exchange for something of greater value, the freedom of not being in debt all the time, or wanting to invest in our retirement or our kids' education or whatever that might be. We sacrifice relationally. We give something of value, our time, in exchange for something of greater value, a better marriage, closer friendships, a more intimate relationship with our kids. We sacrifice relationally all the time. Can I just press the pause button here on this? Is there anybody but me who is sick and tired of Cincinnati weather? I mean, give me a break, right? It snowed this past week. It's supposed to snow again. It's March. I'm like, can't we get, a break here? And you know what? I think about this. I think regularly. I mean, I love this city. I love the city so much. And then I also think, I hate the weather. It's snowing. There's gray skies all the time. And I think, why do I stay here? It's because the people that I love. It's the people that I invest in. I'm sacrificing something of value for something of greater value. Because, guys, I got to tell you, we could live in San Diego. I mean, we could live in Hawaii, but we're choosing not to do that because we're making sacrifices of something of value in exchange for something of greater value. Here at Crossroads, we absolutely were founded on a culture of serving and of sacrifice. 23 years ago, you may not know the history, there were 11 people who they sacrificed something of value, their comfortable church experiences in different churches all around town, for something of greater value, where they said, we're going to start and risk a new church for our friends who have given up on church, but hadn't necessarily given up on God. They sacrificed. That first year of Crossroads, we had one service, and Kids Club had to happen. And there were people who sacrificed something of value, attending the service, and volunteered every single week in Kids Club in exchange for something of greater value, a place where their friends could hear this message that could change their life. You know, many of us, I know you're new here to Crossroads Mason, and you may not know some of the history here. We just turned 10 years old, and this building is unbelievable. We've been here for 4 years, and we pull in. You know, we've got abundant parking. We come in, someone hands us coffee, or someone takes our kids and they invest in them, and they build into our students. We come here and we hear amazing music and a great message. But you know what? It wasn't always this way, because the first 6 years of Crossroads Mason, it required volunteers getting there at 5 in the morning to set up and tear down every single Sunday at Mason Middle School. We were absolutely founded on a culture of serving and of sacrifice. Even people who sacrifice financially. This building cost $22 million, this whole campus, and we are experiencing the blessing of that place. But I get the sense that many people don't think sacrifice is required for us to continue to fuel this movement of Crossroads. You know, a lot of people say, yeah, but aren't you a well-oiled machine? And here's what I tell them. I say, no, we're not. And if we ever look that way, it's because of the sacrifice and the grunt work of regular, faithful, already busy, unpaid volunteers who are serving. In fact, I got 4 rock star volunteers who I want to introduce you to right now. So help me welcome up these 4 volunteers who we're going to be hearing some more from. Help me welcome them. All right. Yes, I got next to me right here, I got Marcus Chu. Marcus volunteers in student ministry, so our middle school and high school. We've also got Heather Jobson. Heather volunteers in weekend production. That's all the people here on this stage. She was just singing right over here. Also the people who help out with running cameras and pressing buttons back there in the computer. We got Peju Milne, who volunteers with Kids Club. Yes, Peju. So those are folks who come in and they do prep on Fridays. You bring your kids, you know, the little desk there, they check you in. Includes the people who are back in rooms playing with kids, doing crafts, doing music, also pushing the fuss bus. Actually, I tell them, they always say, Tim, it's the fun bus. I said, okay. And also Terrence Backus. Terrence is with First Impressions, everyone who parks and coffee and greeters and keeping this place looking great. Also back in Experts. Say hello to these guys. Yes? Regular volunteers giving up their weekend. All right, so we're talking about servants, doing grunt work, doing sacrifice. I know that you guys... you don't have a life, right? You really don't. No, just kidding. I know you do. You are clearly sacrificing something of value in exchange for something of greater value because you continue volunteering here. So tell us just a little bit about why you volunteer here. So, Marcus.
Well, my family and I, we have 3 kids under 5, and
oh my gosh,
very
right there,
busy.
3 kids under 5.
And so my wife and I, we just want to rest during the weekends. But we volunteer because we feel like it's foundational to our family, and we want to showcase an example to our kids that volunteering is something that they can do as well.
That's fantastic, man. So you obviously are seeing fruit from that because you continue to do it. So, yeah.
Yeah, the impact that we have is, you know, we may not see every single day, but the stories from the students really make it worthwhile. And so we had a student come and share about his own story, his week, and what he had. And he remembered a message that we had done a few weeks prior about a different type of story for students, wanting to be different than the world. And a lot of times they hear these messages about what they should be, how they should act, and we want to give them a different message and how they can live their lives differently. And he was talking about how he was pressured to smoke. But he remembered the message that one of our volunteers had given in the past, and he remembered that he wanted to be different. He wanted to live a different life, and he refrained from smoking. So hearing testimonies like that really gives us encouragement that what we are doing does have an impact.
Fantastic, man. Very good. Heather, tell us more about why you do this.
So for me, something that I sacrifice, I guess, to do this is being inside of my comfort zone. It's super comfortable for me to sit in the seats in the dark and worship God where no one cares what I look like or sound like. And then to come up here and kind of expose myself to, you know, people's opinions and just giving people a glimpse of what it looks like for me to worship God, which is a super intimate thing. But what I get out of it is, oh my goodness, so much better than any kind of uncomfortableness that I might feel. I've built some amazing relationships with people, not just on stage, but in the background, all the people that are working on the sound and the video and the lights. These people are amazing, and God has used them to speak truth into my life and to really help me to have the confidence to live out who God has made me to be.
I love it. That's fantastic. Marcus, you're seeing impact, and Heather, you're seeing relationships. Paige, how about you?
Well, for me, I volunteer because it's kind of like a selfish thing for me, because I never want to be a bystander. I always want to participate in what God is doing, and I certainly want my life to mean something. So that's why I volunteer.
So good. Yes. Terrence.
I guess I'm up. Well, I would say, for me, there's nothing I enjoy doing more than spending a couple hours on a Sunday morning, sitting in front of the television, preparing for my fantasy football team.
Yes.
It's like a second job for me. And I'll tell you, when I first started coming to church, 9:15 was the only service we came to because it gave me a chance to get home and do that. But the more I took on more responsibility at Crossroads and doing more volunteering, the worse my team performed, actually. But in all
Dude, you're
seriousness,
sacrificing your fantasy football. I want to be in your fantasy football league, because then I can beat you.
You can be in the league.
Okay.
But seriously, the more I took on more responsibilities, the more rewarding it was for me. Selfishly, I actually gained more community. I actually enjoyed meeting new people. Anyone who knows me knows I'm an extrovert, so I love opening a door for someone and saying, "Welcome to Crossroads." Because when I came to Crossroads 4 years ago with my family, someone opened a door for me. So it was something that brought us back to Crossroads, and I enjoy being able to open a door and welcome people into the church, and hopefully someone new will see what I'm doing and want this to be the home for them.
I love it, man. So good. Hey, let's give these guys a hand. Thank you guys so much. Impressive. Hey, I know that these four just represent hundreds of us. In fact, some people are literally volunteering back in the atrium and back in Kids Club right now. If you are a regular volunteer, one of these four teams, or you're doing it weekly, every other week, maybe you're doing Whiz Kids tutoring, you're on the prayer team, if you're one of our regular volunteers, I want to ask you to stand up right now. We just want to say thank you and honor you. Please stand up right now. Please stand up. So grateful. You guys are the engine that helps keep this vehicle moving. Amazing. Well, hey, I want to show you now a few stories of some people whose lives have been changed by volunteering.
I'm Reginae, and I serve here in the inclusion team. Our room is for kids that have any type of special needs.
My name is Matt, and I serve in Elementary C and Kids Club. One of the best things about our experience from day one was how welcoming the community was to our kids.
My name is Jason. I serve at the 5th grade room. I feel like I have attended church a lot, and I've been constantly taking from God, and I feel like He's been preparing me for something, but I've never stepped up to actually do my part, which is to serve Him.
I'm Liz, and I serve in the preschool room. You get to see how God has created all of these different individual kids and individual personalities, and that's a really cool thing to be able to see and really cool to be able to be a part of.
I started coming here with my family, so my mom actually started serving in the 2-year-old room around the age of 14. It was just one of those things where it was like, all right, this is my place. I decided to try out the inclusion team room and fell in love with it instantly.
One of the things that sort of surprised me a little bit is how in a real way they can communicate their understanding of what God means to them. That's been really reassuring but inspiring to know that these kids understand the idea of the goodness of God is pretty great.
So serving in Kids Club has definitely impacted my community life as well. It takes an auditorium of 2,700 or 2,000 and it makes it significantly smaller.
I grew up in an environment that was not a very safe environment, and not having the advocate that I always wished that I had makes me want to be in there so much more and work so much harder for these kids.
I don't really know the home life of all these kids, but I do know that there are a lot of broken homes. And so this is definitely an opportunity for kids to see what it is like to have a godly man in their life. And so every week they know that I'm going to be there.
I've met so many people amazing people who now are like close friends. It's changed my life. It's helped me grow as a person. It's helped me grow as a leader. It's helped me grow as a friend. And oh, so thankful. Just so thankful.
You know, I'm not a teacher, I'm an attorney, but even just the idea of being with kids who show love and compassion with each other, I wasn't necessarily prepared to understand just how much of an impact that would have on me.
I feel like I'm just doing what God wants me to do. And that really is, it feels good. And that's kind of how God works. He always shows up in a way that we can't really fathom. And it's kind of fun.
Being on the inclusion team, God showed up in just these great big ways. He has shown me his joy, and he has shown me the fierce love that he has, and he's claimed me, which that's all kids really want, is to be claimed, is to know that they belong to someone who is willing to love them relentlessly.
Man, how good is that? Gosh. You know, 2 of those 4 volunteers who were interviewed are Crossroads Mason people. Matt Steele, he's an attorney. He is the president of the Mason School Board, but he and his wife find time to volunteer because it's a priority to them. Liz, she was interviewed as well. She is a negotiator for the Department of Defense. I wanted to ask more about that, but I was afraid she was going to beat me up, so I didn't. But it's so impressive to see how people are unlocking things in them. So, hey, let's pick this story back up. John chapter 2, after the servants sacrifice and do what it takes, grunt work and sacrifice to fill these jars with water, beginning in verse 8. Then Jesus told them, now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet. And they did so. And the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Man, I would have loved to have been there at this time. I mean, how did the water actually turn into wine? I mean, did it just immediately go from Fiji to Robert Mondavi, which, by the way, this was the cheapest bottle of wine on sale, actually, at Kroger. But hey, so how did it go? Was that instantaneous? Was that like a couple-minute process from this clear H2O where it went to pink, it went to a red, it went to a deep burgundy? How did the miracle actually happen? The Bible says that the master of the banquet, he didn't know. He tasted the wine, but he didn't know where it came from. The guests, they also tasted the wine, but they didn't know how the miracle happened. Do you know the only people who knew how the miracle happened? It was the servants. The servants were the ones who were there, and they're the ones who saw it. And you know what? We see here this third principle that when servants do grunt work, when servants sacrifice, then number 3, servants see miracles. Everyone enjoyed the blessing of the miracle. They all got to drink the wine, 757 bottles worth. I would have liked to have been at that party. That's a heck of a party. But it was only the servants who actually saw the miracle take place. You know, it's not wrong to be a servant knowing, even expecting that you're going to see good things happen in your life, blessing, miracles. I think that's how God works. God says, when you give, you will receive. Ralph Waldo Emerson said the same thing. He said, it is one of the most beautiful compensations of life that no man can sincerely try to help another without also trying to help himself. I told you that this would in part be a Crossroads Mason State of the Union. I got to tell you, the State of the Union is strong. And I just want to tick through some amazing things that are happening here because, guys, you are not going to believe what's happening here. Let me tell you here first, Super Bowl of preaching. We had over 12,000 people who came here. Amazing! Came here in person or streamed in surrounding zip codes. Christmas at Crossroads, over 13,000 people who came. It's incredible what God's doing here. Right now we have over 200 middle school and high school students who've signed up to go to summer camp this summer, have an opportunity to have their lives changed, just like we saw about Mike. My life was changed at a summer camp. And we have more on the waiting list. If some of us will step up and volunteer, God is changing people's lives. You know what? No other church in the city, including any other Crossroads site, has more whiz kids who are getting tutored than Crossroads Mason. Incredible. No other church in the entire city, including any other site of Crossroads, has more special needs kids that are getting taken care of than Crossroads Mason. You know what? Speaking of special needs, just this fall, we had our second annual We Run, 5K, 10K. And as people ran with any of the proceeds that came from that, we were able to invest and write a check to the first ever in this region playground for kids with special needs. It's called Common Ground, and it's happening right across the street. And it just broke ground. Come on now. There's so much good stuff. More stuff than I can even explain. And you know about like Cinderella's Closet. You don't know about that probably, but it was started by a Crossroads Mason person. It's being housed here. We are helping to fund it, and it's happening this coming weekend where over 200 girls of area high schools are coming who want to go to prom but don't have the money to purchase a prom dress. And they're going to come here, and they're going to get to choose from thousands of dresses. They're going to get to choose the one that fits them. But not just that, they're going to get shoes, they're going to get makeup, they're going to get jewelry, they're going to get their photo taken, they're going to get to hear about a God who thinks they're beautiful. That's happening right here. Crossroads Mason, we started a new campus called Crossroads Dayton. Incredible things are happening. They're kicking butt by every stretch and every measure. It's incredible. We started our own nonprofit. It's called One City Against Heroin in 2018. You know what? We founded the first men's recovery home in all of Warren County for men coming out of addiction treatment. Isn't that amazing? And from the beginning of One City Against Heroin, which we founded 3 years ago, you're not even going to believe this stat, over 1,300 people have been placed into life-saving treatment. Can you even believe that? I can't even talk right now. I'm so excited. It seriously is unbelievable. Last stat I want to share with you is that in 2018 alone, we had 278 people get baptized who said, Jesus, I need you. I want to receive your grace into my life, including right here, Jay. Jay's one of my closest friends. We were in a neighborhood. Jay's playing this weekend in the band. You know a little bit about Jay. Jay played in the bands growing up, but he was not following God at that time, and he kind of associated music at that time with not him following God, and he put the guitar on the shelf. But you know what? Jay's life has changed. He's following Jesus. He got baptized. He picked up that guitar off the shelf, and he's playing on our stage, helping all of us to connect closer to God. Come on now. The state of the union is strong. 757 bottles of Fiji to Robert Mondavi. Listen, that's nothing compared to what you're doing. You're doing this. I'm not doing it. God's using you to perform miracles. And I got to tell you, as good as all that is, I'm absolutely convinced the best is still yet to come. The best is still yet to come. There's more whiz kids that we need to continue to invest in. There's more kids with special needs that we need to care for. There's more people with depression that we need to bring and tell them there's hope. There's more lonely people we need to get into community. More marriages that need saved. More addictions that need broken. More regular people who need to come into a life-changing relationship with Jesus. More your friends, your coworkers, your neighbors, the people that you love, your family, who you've given up on. And you think God can never reach them. But you know what? God's coming after them. And God wants to continue to use this place to reach them. See, Jesus did the miracle. He changed the water to wine, but you know what? He used the servants. And I want to give you the thrill of seeing miracles with a front row seat. I want to give you the opportunity to step up. And so I'm going to have an ask for you right now. It's the ask I was telling you about. I want to ask you to volunteer here at Crossroads. I want you to be a servant. And I want that for you because I know you're going to change when you do. We're going to have volunteers who are coming down the aisles, and they're going to bring a card to you. You can take one down, pass it around. It's going to look like this, and you should have received a pen when you came in. And I want to encourage you to consider volunteering here at the church. I think there are too many of us who are just sitting on the sidelines, and it's time to get off the sidelines and into the game. Get off the bleachers. There's a lot of us who got clean jerseys. It's time to get our jersey dirty. And I want to be really clear. This is not about me trying to extract something from you that I need. This is not that. This is not that. This is me, because I love you. I want to give something to you that I believe you need and you can grow from. You know, I was milling around the atrium a couple weeks ago, and I met a couple who I knew they looked familiar, and I introduced myself, and they said, yeah, we're Derek and Amy. We just met you a couple months ago at Experts. Experts is a thing we regularly do here where you can find your fit. And they said, you know how you always talk, Tim, about volunteering? I said, yeah. They said, we started at Super Bowl preaching. I said, that's awesome. They said, we actually continued. Derek said, I've been volunteering in First Impressions. Amy said, I've been volunteering in Kids Club. And I said, man, that is so cool. And they said, Tim, you know how you say by volunteering you make a big church small and you start to feel like you're a part of this place making it happen? You get to know people, you build friendships, you walk in this place and you just smile thinking, wow, this is a place that I'm helping to make. And I said, yeah. They said, you know what? It really works. And I said, I know. That's why I told you that, to get involved in volunteering. And you know what? I want that for you. I want to bring some clarity. You know what? We value volunteering anywhere. I do. In your kids' school, coaching their teams, working at the local homeless shelter. I do those things. I hope you do and will continue to do so. I do. And that's not what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about volunteering at your church to continue to fuel this movement of all these amazing things that are happening and to unlock God's blessing in our lives. See, it nearly takes 600 volunteers to pull off any given weekend here. That's incredible, 600 volunteers, and we can use 200 more volunteers to make that happen right now. On any of these 4 weekend teams, on the back of this card, it says you can volunteer with Kids Club, Student Ministry, First Impressions, or Weekend Production. Some of you are saying, Tim, you have me at hello. I'm ready. But where is the biggest need? I got to tell you, by far, the biggest need is in Kids Club. We've got so many kids back there. I don't even know what you people are doing besides making babies because there's so many kids back there. And so I want to have an opportunity to continue to invest in those kids. I've personally been volunteering, spending some time back in Kids Club. And I was back there a few weeks ago. I was in our kindergarten room, and they were talking about Lazarus and the story how he was dead and Jesus raised him to life. He was like a mummy, so we were wrapping ourselves in toilet paper, and here's a picture of me. This guy up top, Xavier. Xavier is a freshman at Mason High School, and he volunteers almost every week. It's so cool. It's so cool. I also was spending some time back in a preschool room, and I was back there, and I was handing out goldfish and graham crackers. You can see this guy in the lower left. He was like really excited that I was there. It's like, great, get this guy out of here. Listen, by volunteering in Kids Club, you can invest in the life of a child. You can give out graham crackers and goldfish. You can hear about confessions when their parents get drunk. You can hear about all those things. But listen, I want you to take a minute and fill that out. All you need to do is fill out your name and your email address and your phone. I encourage you, just check one box, and we will follow back up with you. And, when we do that, we're going to follow up this week. I just want to encourage you, get back to us, because we want to plug you in. I know some of you got questions like, hey, if I volunteer, my kids come, like, what do I do with them for the rest of the time? We've got something called Adventure Club, where kids can come, and it's like crafts or movies or open gym time, and they can have a blast there. Some of you are saying, great, but like if I travel, what if I can't volunteer every week? We'd love for you to volunteer as much as works for you. You can volunteer every week. You can volunteer twice a month, whatever works for you. We will work with you. Tim, do I have to volunteer for the rest of eternity if I sign up? Yes, you do. We're getting that in blood. No, of course not. You just try it and see if it works for you. Listen, I want this for you. I want you to build friendships. I want you to feel the thrill of being used here. I want you to have an impact. I want you to unlock this good, rich life that God has for us. I want to invite you to pray with me. God, I just thank you for our church here. People will give me grace when I share a message about what's really happening here, the state of the union here at Crossroads Mason. And people will say, you know what, God, what do you have for me? How do you want me to grow as a servant? And so, God, I pray that people right now, you'd speak to them. No guilt trip. You'd simply speak to folks. If people are called to step up and sacrifice some things so that they can actually be part of this amazing movement. I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. So here's what we're going to do in a minute. When we head out, we're going to have volunteers out at the doors. They're going to have silver buckets, and you can just place this volunteer card. If you want to volunteer, place that in the bucket. And like I said, we will get back to you. I'm telling you what, honestly, it ticks me off when people sign stuff and then they don't follow up when we follow up. So I hope you will do that. I hope you'll get back with us. We'd love for you to do that. Also, you may have questions. Maybe you got questions. You're like, all right, what's this mean? Or you didn't sign up because you got some questions. We're going to have volunteers who are going to be back in the atrium who would love to answer those questions. So we've got Kids Club volunteers who are going to be back behind the Kids Club desk. First Impressions folks at the Info Center. Student ministry folks are going to be back by student section. All the weekend production folks, they're going to be under the big screen in the atrium, and they can answer any of your questions. And we're really excited about this. And listen, next week, guys, next week is going to be good. We're talking about identity. We're talking about letting God define who you are. The message is called Don't Make a Name for Yourself. It's going to be really, really good. Listen, I love this place, and I'm so grateful for you. And so I'm excited for where we're going. And so, listen, have an amazing, amazing rest of the weekend.